science enthusiasts. Welcome to Spaces Unleashed. Every week on Twitter, we bring an expert to chat live through the Spaces program. And this is bonus content that goes with the Science Podcast. We hope you enjoy the show.
So first off, Anthony, are you now west coast of the United States? Like the northern west coast? Did you move for the last couple bit of your education?
Yeah, so previously we were in Los Angeles and I was finishing, or at least I was doing the first part of my graduate school in Santa Barbara. But the last year of my graduate program, you have to do a year-long clinical internship. And I match at the University of Washington. So I moved to, or at least we moved to Seattle like the last week of June. And we've been loving it thus far.
It is like the west coast of Canada, just a little bit warmer. We're heading out to Vancouver Island in August, so we'll be literally like 3 or 4 hours from you guys at one point. But I don't know if the border will be open by then for people driving back and forth. So just a couple questions, Anthony. So you mentioned that you're working on your graduate degree. Just for kind of like to introduce yourself, what are you in school for? You're close to, you're within striking distance of a PhD, I believe.
Yes. Wait. Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Sorry, I got a message saying connection.
I get those all the time. It's kind of buggy. Don't worry about it.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I'm within striking distance. I think that's the perfect way to put it. I'm in a clinical psychology PhD program, and the typical length for that program is about like 5 or 6 years. The first maybe 4 or 5 years are dedicated to doing research, taking your coursework, getting your beginning clinical training. And the last year is dedicated to a full length year-round, full-time year-long internship where you're doing clinical work, you're doing a little bit of research, but you're really kind of demonstrating your competency to be able to essentially call yourself a psychologist someday.
Now, we had talked on the podcast that you're working with communication skills and people with autism to maintain like relationships online. Like, have you moved past that, or is that still part of this area?
That's still what I'm doing in my line of research. Is continuing to teach adults or just individuals with autism online social communication skills, including the strategies and communication modalities to make friends, maintain friendships, but then also stay safe online. And while at least that research has taken place over the last, or at least developed over the last 4 years, and so that line of clinical work, or at least that line of clinical research, has been completed, but I'm still in the process of analyzing the data, writing up the dissertation, so that's still in process. So I'm supposed to be doing that at the same time as I'm doing this full-time internship. So ideally, you get it done before you go off to do your internship, but clinical research is hard.
Sounds like you're going to be a busy guy. Holy man.
Yeah, so if you see fewer Pavolv fruits, you know why.
Oh, I get that. Yeah, I get that. My day job gets crazy too, and we'll talk about Pavolv and Maslow in a second. You probably, if you don't tweet or post something, people are like, "Oh no, something all right with your dogs?" And you're like, "Nope, it's just life. Life is just super busy."
Yeah, exactly.
So, about your research, could you tell everybody a little bit about what did you find out about being safe online? Teaching people with autism skills for the internet. I'm probably not doing a great service to summing up what you kind of talked about there, but I think everybody would be really interested what some of the things you found, or maybe what you did and you didn't find.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, totally. So, my interest relates to
Oh, I've lost audio. Sorry, Anthony, if I'm cutting you out and you're still speaking. Can you guys give me a 100 if you can hear Anthony? Give me a crying face if you can't hear Anthony. Okay, so it's just me. Oh, crying face. A lot of people can't hear Anthony. Oh, there we go. Looks like you're back, Anthony.
Mic is off.
Oh.
Okay, I'm back.
Yeah, sorry, you'll have to start again. I think you cut out just when I gave you the floor to talk.
Okay, great. It's easy to start from the top. So my research relates to individuals with autism on social skills. And that was what my beginning research and clinical work was focused on. However, I started to understand and recognize that, social skills are very context specific and culture specific. And that, the way that you talk and communicate to someone varies, whether they're your in-person friend or, whether they be your coworker or your family member. You really vary the way that you communicate and socialize with them. And me being someone who spends a lot of time online, I conceptualized that, social media is its own context. It has its own culture that requires unique social skills in order to navigate. So just like in making eye contact might be more or less appropriate, across different social media apps, there's unique ways that you have to act in order to make friends, make sure that you're behaving appropriately, not violating any rules, and then ultimately staying safe. So like at the very beginning, when you acknowledge, Zoom bombers, that in order to screen for Zoom bombers, I'm going to look at their profile. I'm going to look at when their profile was created, what their username is, what their history of following and posting is. And that's a social skill. You are gaining knowledge about that person in order to gain your own interpretation of like what that person is like. That's a social skill. And so what I developed was an intervention to teach individuals with autism the skills needed to maintain social relationships, stay safe, friends. And these were all individuals who were identifying that this was a skill or a need for them. They're saying, I want to make friends online, or I want to make friends in general. Social media is a way that I do it. I need some support. And we were able to put together a social skills group with about, each group had about 4 to 5 individuals in it. We just really broke it down to, this is what you do to make friends. You add people that you know. You find people with shared interests, you connect over them, and this is what we're doing, right? We both got dogs, we both like science, and we've developed a friendship because of that. And so, ultimately, my work relates to helping people with social vulnerabilities learn the skills to make friends. And what we found is that it's pretty promising. Participants enjoy it. They've identified, or at least we've seen them start to post more. And it's not that posting more is better, but you do have to post. You do have to show things about yourself to the world in order to make friendships. So it's still a really beginning line of work, but an area that really intersects my love for social media and psychology.
So one just question before we move on to your dogs, which is a big draw for people coming here today. When you were young, did you have a calling to go into psychology and working with people? Were you an early adopter of social media, and then that became, that was the nugget in the back of your head as you pursued psychology?
Oh, I love this question because psychology, being a psychologist, is all about understanding how people came to be, and you have to do a lot of that with yourself process. And so, yes, I think that ultimately I'm a really social being. My culture is very social. I grew up in a Mexican family, and we're very, social, and we talk to everyone and we invite everyone. We're very animated. We bring everyone together, and those experiences taught me to be really social and really confident in social settings. And then being a millennial, I really grew up in the age of social media. I remember I met my partner, Tram, on MySpace, or at least like through a MySpace connection. So that's really dating how early, but also how active I was on social media throughout my life.
Partner on MySpace? Sorry, Anthony, I didn't mean to cut you out. That's amazing.
Yeah, no,
I love
totally.
it.
Those. That's where I was spending my time, and that's where I was learning my people skills. Like, there's definitely the empathy and social communication that comes through interacting with a lot of people, but then also my social media skills. And I think that that's something that is no coincidence that And I think same with you, right? Like you have incredible multimedia skills. You're running a podcast, you're killing it on Twitter, and that is really reflected in the work that we do. So I think there's a start to be a generation of psychologists and people that psychologists that have an intersection with social can maybe understand it a little bit more, empathize, become clinicians with people who are challenged online or experiencing stress online, and ultimately doing research that relates to the intersection of mental health, psychology, social media, because there's, we're just starting to scratch the surface of the impact that this is having on us.
That is really profound. Like, I don't know how many people know my day job. I'm a chemistry teacher. I teach high school kids. And I'm like so woefully unprepared to help kids with any of the struggles that they have with social media, because I didn't grow up with social media. But all of these kids, they live online. Like they have their real life persona, and then they have their persona online. Thank goodness for our counselors who took upgrading, but we've got these awesome counselors at our school, because you're right, like we're just scratching the surface of trying to figure all this stuff out. And I'm just so glad people like you are getting trained in it to help out society. Because I don't have training in that. I have no idea about any of that. So that's really amazing that you're in that for the future.
Yeah, I'm trying to get into as full ears as possible that this is a really important matter, and I think it's obvious. I think it's, but I don't think we've really penetrated how deeply psychological social media has impacted our generation, our society, our social skills, how we communicate, how we build relationships, and that's the foundation of what makes a person. And science is always things later than practice and what's happening on the floor. And that's why I enjoy social media so much, is because we're able to disseminate and really talk about information in a way that science, previous science communications has lacked.
Right. And that's, again, like I'm one generation older than you. It took forever for me to get new science information before the internet, or like even the internet was in its infancy. Now we have all of these amazing SciComm people that if something new and cool is happening, it's on social media. If you're interested in that, it's a really, that's a big positive part of social media.
Yeah, the intersection, like we have to use it to our advantage. And if we can use it to support people that are vulnerable, if we can use it to empathize with people experiencing challenges, I'm all for it.
All right. Well, that's super cool. That's really positive. So the other thing that you have, and we have to chat about this, is your two doggos, Pavolv and Maslow. So could you, for people that, I don't know if people don't know who they are, but maybe people follow me, but not Pavolv. Could you talk about your dogs? And then I got maybe a couple follow-up questions, and then we'll open the floor to questions from the audience.
Of course. Yeah. Pavolv is a Corgi. He's 5.5 years old. He's almost 6. He is, many of you might know him just because we share a lot of him online, like we just talked about, sharing, being really active on social media. He's very smart, very independent, very, I don't want to say it, very strong-willed. He really has his own personality, and for anyone who has a Corgi or has interacted with the Corgi, that you understand what we mean. And then Maslow's the complete opposite. Being a case Hund, he is. We got him to be, because he was the antithesis of Pavolv. We were like, we want a dog. Pavolv, being a working dog, is very motivated to do something, but that doing something doesn't include loving you. And Maslow, the breed of the case Hund is very loving. They call them Velcro dogs. We did our research and wanted to make sure that we got a dog that was compatible with our family. And he's very emotionally attached to us. He's very smart, gets along with Pavolv. He's so kind. He doesn't get into fights, which is awesome because Pavolv can kind of just beat him up. And he's just a big football. And so he's just turned 1, I think, in May. And, our life has been floofier ever since.
It's really funny because I think you got Maslow the same time we got Beaker, like within a couple weeks, I think, or a month. And it's the opposite. Like Beaker's the opposite personality of Bunsen. So it's such a fun mix when you have those two dogs that have such different personalities, and I can see that with Pavolv and Maslow.
Every day is so delightful with them.
Yeah, and how big is Low for full grown?
Yeah, so
like, is he gonna get any bigger?
No, we just took him to the pet store down the street, and they have a scale, so we have a very up to date. We have some very up to date data. Maslow is 31 pounds, and Pavolv is 27. So
that's aw.
yeah. And so Maslow's relatively full grown. He'll get floofier, like he's blowing a coat right now, and we'll get kind of more mass, or maybe not more mass, but more visually floofier. I know you're a scientist. I don't want to throw around mass incorrectly. And then but compared to other case hens, he's on the smaller end. Generally, they tend to be about 35 pounds.
Yeah, I was just curious. Beaker is small for a golden retriever, and she's like 51 pounds. And Bunsen is like average for a Bernese Mountain Dog. He's just about 100. So he's a big guy. He's a monster.
Oh, I met one yesterday. His name was Moose, and a Bernese Mountain Dog, and he was the nicest, sweetest dog, but he did not know how big he was, and
No, you watch out.
Oh my gosh. And the way that he greets you is he shoves his body in between your legs so he can like waggle his butt and you can scratch it. But I was not prepared for it.
Bunsen will turn around and wiggle his butt and sit down on people's feet. And it's the worst. I don't know how to train him out of it. He's just so happy, but he does that. But when a giant dog sits on your feet and you lose your balance, you go over backwards, right? Imagine like somebody sitting on your feet, and you just so that's what he does. I don't know what it is about burners. They're just they don't know how big they are. They're just weirdos. And your Twitter account is growing pretty good. Like I think you guys are close to 55,000 followers. So congratulations. Your Instagram account is enormous though. Like you have such a enormous Instagram account. So that's just congratulations for that. Oh, did I lose you? Uh-oh. I can't hear Anthony speaking. Can you guys give me a cry face if you can't hear him speaking? Give me a 100 you can. Maybe it's just okay. So people are crying. All right, we've lost Anthony. He'll come back. Sorry, Anthony. Oh, he's gone. No, he's a listener now. Okay, so I'll give him the ability to speak. Yeah, I'm giving you the ability to speak, Anthony.
We're back.
You're back. I was just mentioning your Instagram account.
Yes, the Instagram account. What about it?
Oh, I was just congratulating on your Instagram account. Like it's enormous. Like it's a really big account. So good for you.
Oh, thank you. That was those beginning Tumblr skills where I was. Oh man, you don't like when I was on MySpace, I used to edit my photos and like try to get people to like follow me or like my account. So it was nice to channel that into a Corgi account where it's more socially appropriate to post every day.
Oh, there you go. And I'm sure just before we throw it to the audience, we talked on the podcast. One of the things that I find about running like Bunsen and Beaker's account, and I know maybe you could give your 2 cents about this too, is with pictures of dogs, daily pictures of dogs, even if there's no mention that there's no message attached, we get comments that, like, hey, your dogs really brighten my mood. Your dogs help me on a tough day. I'd imagine you get that too through both of your accounts. Yeah,
I think that's social media is very reinforcing in that way, and whether or not we realize it's like reinforcing us, isn't it? But we were really active on Instagram. But what really drew me to Twitter was how much you were able to relate to the community, the relationships that people were able to build with your dogs. It wasn't just one directional. And on Twitter, you're able to like follow someone or like, follow them or comment back and look at their account and like understand like, oh, this guy's a teacher. He likes politics and he likes the weather and go and like you can really gain information with your Twitter community. Whereas on Instagram, a lot of people don't really post much because there's a lot of expectations about what your content should look like, and it's more like a magazine than it is kind of like a mini blog. And so by sharing our dogs, I realized like it's really low pressure. I could just post my dog doing whatever, and shout out to Nelson. What's up, Walter? Because they do it to perfection as well. You just post your dog being your dog. And that's better for my mental health as well, because I can just what makes me happy with the world without, really being too concerned about it upsetting anyone or not meeting someone's expectation or really not meeting my expectations.
Well, our Instagram account is not near as big as yours, so we just throw the pictures out there and hope for the best.
Hey everybody, thanks for listening to our show week after week. If you want to know how to support the Science Podcast, here are a couple ways. It's always going to be free to download, so you'll never have to worry about paying for it. But, things do cost money running a podcast, and here are a couple ways you could help us out. One is join our Patreon page. It's amazing. It's growing. It's almost like an extended family. There's multiple tiers of support, and we have lots of fun perks for being part of our Patreon page. The other way you could support us is giving us an awesome review on Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts, anywhere you can rate our podcast. Give us a great review. The third way you could support the show is checking out the BunsenBurnerBMD.com website. We have awesome merch there. We worked really hard finding quality merchandise that's comfortable with vibrant colors. And you'll find in limited quantities over the next couple months, maybe even less, the 2022 Bunsen and Beaker calendar. So 3 ways to support us: the Patreon page, 2, give us a great review, 3, head over to our merch stop and see if there's anything there you'd like. Thanks, everybody.
But okay, so this is the fun part. I'm going to open up the floor. If you have a question for Anthony about his work in psychology, how he's working with social media and people with autism, or Pavolv and Maslow questions, you just have to ask to be a speaker. And just remember the rules again. If you ask to be a speaker, I'm going to quickly creep your profile and make sure it's somebody that's following one of us, or it's not a brand new account, or it's not an account full of like troll posts. So if you are asking to be a speaker, those are kind of the caveats there. So go ahead. All you have to do is you have to ask to be a speaker, and I'll give you the ability to do so. And this is the awkward part. It takes a bit for some people to work up the courage to ask to be a speaker.
I wish we were like on video. I can just like switch it to like Pavolv cam or some Bunsen cam, but
You betcha. Okay, so Liz Button is asking to be speaker. Go ahead, Liz. You're up. Hey, Liz, aren't you supposed to be teaching a class?
You know what? It's the last day, and they're just doing some assignments, and I was like, something cooler I got to do. No offense. Anyway, it's just developmental psych. It's boring. So yeah, I'm excited to be talking to you, and I love your dog's names, of course. I was curious about some of your research, though. So has your intervention been solely online, since we're not really allowed to do anything face-to-face?
Ooh, that's a great question. So we piloted it in person before the pandemic with a very small sample, just to get an understanding of the content, modes of delivery, whether or not this was something that the participants actually wanted, did they enjoy it, really feasibility and acceptability. And then I had already planned to move it to group format, and the pandemic really made that in-person element not possible. But this is an intervention that I think really is thrive being online, because I bring an elements of the internet, and we were communicating about things that we could just draw in. And to ask people who really like being online, engaging on social media, no matter what the social media was, ask them to, at like 4:00, talk about social media. It was a little bit easier, and it felt a lot more natural to do it online. So I do think there's a unique benefit to doing clinical work in person that has that like a certain level of, more different effectiveness for certain people. But for individuals on the spectrum where getting them in person and kind of overcoming that social, that social anxiety, online modality might be the best moving forward.
Okay. And then since you kind of piloted it before the pandemic, did you do any kind of follow-up and see if they were able to generalize what they learned online to actually being in person, or probably not because we haven't been really able to get out amongst the masses? I just didn't know how well they did.
Yeah, so for the in-person intervention, no, we didn't do a follow-up because it was, a really small pilot to get the program kind of worked out. But for my dissertation, I did a randomized control trial, or I'm doing a randomized control trial where we did like a waitlist control group, an active group, and then a 1-month follow-up. And that data is still being collected and probably won't be analyzed until my dissertation's ready, which, who knows. But ultimately, but related to your question about whether or not this impacts their in-person social skills, I want to acknowledge that this intervention wasn't created for that, and there is, unique skills and communication strategies required for online space. And I think that previously there was the thought, oh, we can't get kids online, it's going to impact their in-person skills, they're not going to have any in-person friends. And in 2021, that's okay if they don't have in-person friends, because so many people are communicating online, and for an entire year it was the only way that people can safely communicate and build relationships with others. And so, if we can get people with social vulnerabilities who have zero in-person friends and like maybe very few online friends that have maybe zero in-person friends but more in online friends, that's a win for me, and hopefully it's a win for those who are really looking for that type of support.
Yeah, absolutely. And just one more thing, and then I'll let other people talk, because I could talk all night about this. And I was just thinking, because I was talking to my husband the other day, and I was talking about people on Twitter. I'm like, oh, my friend from Twitter. We're not really friends. I mean, we've never hung out, but I'm wondering if the social skills online kind of builds up their confidence to go initiate friendships with people IRL. I don't know.
I think so. I mean, I think that it makes it, in some way, I wouldn't say that all of a sudden they're going to have more improved social skills in person.
Right.
However, part of social skills is identifying people with shared interests, experiences, and like hobbies, identities. Like if you can find people who also identify as queer, you might have more in common with them, or you can have something to connect with because of your shared experiences, identities. And us as dog lovers and science lovers, we have more in common with each other because of the internet. We were able to really cultivate a community online. We were able to kind of self-select people to be our internet friends in a way that in person you don't have that opportunity. You make friends with your coworkers, people that you go to, just groups, sports teams in school. And there comes a point in your life where, or at least a point in that kind of context, in which you can't make any more friends. If you have social vulnerabilities in the first week of school, you join a classroom of kids and you make a mistake, you kind of embarrass yourself, you're not capable of forming those early relationships. The rest of the school year, you're going to really be in a challenged position. And, you're not going to switch schools, you're not going to switch classrooms, you're kind of stuck. Online, you could find another community. You can I'm going to Reddit, sorry, Twitter, I'm going to Instagram, I'm going to group. You can really find more friends, and maybe you end up meeting up in person, maybe you don't, but I think you can kind of cultivate your social experience a little bit better online.
Yeah. Well, cool. Thank you. And when you publish it in ProQuest, please send me your DOI.
Good talking to you, Liz.
Thanks.
Thanks, Liz. Okay, Chicken Fingers, you're up, and Kathy, you are on deck. So go ahead, Chicken Fingers, at Lauren_LP2.
Sorry.
Just gotta go ahead.
Sorry. Hi, Anthony. Hi, Bunsen. Longtime Corgi owner here. How do you motivate Pavolv for your photos?
Hi, Chicken Fingers. We motivate Pavlov's being, corgis. Corgis are very smart, and they're very food motivated. Also very toy motivated. And so something that I've learned throughout my life of having an Instagram dog is that Pavlov's best trick is that he knows how to take pictures. So first off, we have taught him commands to sit, stay, look at the camera. We have like these really crazy like sounds that we make that like get us in. Like he really hates the blueberry sound that you can make with your like tongue, where it sounds like you're spitting. But if you want to get him to smile, the trick is to tire him out. So like Pavlov has a really mean face. I don't want to say RBF because that's really sexist. He has a really mean face a lot of the time. And so we try to get him to take pictures, and we're like, why is he so grumpy? Like, why does he look so pissed off? And so we have to like run him around, because if you get them to like breathe out of their mouth, it looks like they're smiling and, you know, look a little happier. And I mean, I think running around doesn't make him happier, him being a corgi. So those are a few tricks we have.
Okay, yeah, 'cause every time we try to call our corgi, he just flops on his side. He just does what he wants. And
He's
I
training. He trained you.
Yeah, pretty much. So I'll have to motivate him more with food and try not to make him fat.
Find what
That's a
motivates him.
corgi thing.
Yeah.
I know. All right. Well, thank you for your insight.
Good talking to you.
See, the good thing about Bunsen is he's got that giant tongue, and he's always got it out, so it always looks like he's so happy. I don't know what he looks like actually without his giant tongue out. So, but with Beaker, that's the same thing. If she's not tired, she has RBF, resting Beaker face. But once she's tired, she's got a beautiful golden smile. It's so cute. So I always take her pictures after our giant walk, where she just tears about and gets tired. So that's funny that we have the same strategies, Anthony.
Cheat codes.
Cheat codes, yeah. Kathy, you're up. Go ahead. And for everybody else, Kathy's getting ready to speak. If you would like to ask a question, you can ask to be a speaker. You just have to do an invite, and I'll do a quick background check on you, because that's how I roll. Okay, go ahead, Kathy.
Okay. I just want to say hi, Anthony and Tram and Dad Guy. Hope everybody's having a good evening. I've enjoyed listening so far. But I'm just going back to something like Liz said about social media, and if somebody would really want to meet somebody in real life. And I just want to tell Dad Guy and Anthony and Tram, I would love to actually be able to run into you guys at some time. I know that now Anthony's in Seattle, and I'm not far from Seattle. I just don't go there very often, but I sit there and see his pictures at Pike Place and stuff, and people yelling out. They've seen you on the street, and they've yelled out the windows, saying, "Hi, Pavolv, hi, Maslow." And so I hope while you're in Seattle at one point, I'll get a chance to actually get to possibly run into you guys in real life.
Yeah, we would love that. We would love that. Yeah, we our favorite part about having these dogs and the social media presence is that we're able to connect with others, and it's a nice invitation to talk to us and have a discussion. And if we see people in person, we are stoked. Like, I know people are like, I don't know if I should say hi, like, you know, and just like, if you think it's us, just say hi. Because we're just so thankful for all the opportunities and relationships we've been able to build. And Maslow makes it easier. Before, if you just saw two brown people walking with a corgi, you're like, that's like, you know, it could be a lot of corgi owners. It could be a lot of corgis. But if you see a big floof ball and you see a little corgi walking around with two brown people, then, you know, it's probably Pavolv and Maslow. So I think more recently it's been a little bit easier to spot us, which I think is a good.
Yeah, I know my aunt had a corgi and stuff, and then my brother-in-law has a corgi, and you're right, they're yeah, strong-minded people. I mean, so I know. I'm really anxious to be able to get over there sometime this summer with my I call him Baby Murphy, the golden retriever, and he comes to the office. I work at the school district here at where I live, and he comes into the office and stays with me all day a lot of times and stuff, because he's just really chill. But I would love to go over to Seattle and go in Ballard to the Dog Yard Bar. I don't know if you guys have heard that yet, but it looks so much fun on their Instagram account that That's why I was like, I just walk on the ferry and maybe I'll run into, Pavlov and Maslow on my way to Dog Yard Bar.
Yeah, we've heard about it. It looks cool. We'll definitely have to check it out. It's on our list.
All right. All right. Well, thank you for letting me speak. It's nice to hear you guys tonight, and I enjoy listening to
Take
you.
care, Kathy.
You too.
That's kind of cool that people shout at you, Anthony. Hopefully it doesn't get to the point where, like everybody in the world is shouting at you. I'm pretty fortunate. I live in like central Alberta, Canada, and literally nobody knows how big our dogs are. They have no concept. So I am completely anonymous where I live.
Yeah,
And
it's
some
only
my
in
students
certain
don't
pockets.
even care either.
Yeah,
sorry.
that's something like no, for us we feel so like it's funny because it all depends on like where you're at. Like there's only a few places where like people can see your dogs and yell at you.
Yeah. My students are high school teenage kids, and they're so jaded they just don't care. I'm like, hey, my dogs have like, they're kind of famous, and they're like, whatever, old man. So
Yeah, I don't know how much Twitter has with the kids these days.
it's zero
Oh,
clout,
man.
zero clout. But I made like a TikTok account, and I'm struggling to do TikTok content, and we still have more TikTok followers than like an entire class put together. So you know what? Nuts to them. So anyways, on to you, over to Angie. Angie, go ahead. And we got a request here. So Paula, you're on deck. Go ahead, Angie.
Sorry. I'm totally gonna nerd out for a second, and I'm really sorry, so I apologize ahead of time. I had 3 really quick questions. I was curious whether you noticed anything by age or by previous treatments and therapies and those kinds of things, if you noticed it different when they approach the envelope. And I was curious as to whether you noticed a difference when they're within their, like when they collect together and there's a bunch of, say, autistic individuals discussing things, if you notice there's a difference when they're within their groups or without it on different social media platforms. And I was curious if you noticed if their behavior, like if the way they approach things, if their behavior changed switching between platforms, if that makes sense.
Yes, those are all great questions. My methodology will help clarify some things. So first off, social skills are incredibly terribly challenging things to measure. So like whether or not someone is social is really what's social? Eye contact, how many words you say, and what's a good communication skill? Like, is it the number of words you say? Is it how loudly you say them? It's like there's an ebb and flow of it, but is it how many questions you ask? Is it how many comments you ask? Because you could do too much and too little of all these. And this is something that, having a expertise in autism has taught me. And so within that, online, it's really hard to say what was different social media behavior, because you can measure a bunch of things on a bunch of different platforms. On Facebook, you might be able to measure like likes and friend count. Like, how do you measure whether or not someone's good on social media? Is it the number of followers? Is it the amount of engagement? Because that's variable and not entirely dependent on your skill or the number of relationships you have. And so within that, we really had to operationalize what we were going to look at, and that was very limited by the data that you're able to collect on social media. And in a very incredibly privacy intrusive way, Facebook has a feature called your activity log, to where it documents all the things that you do, what you like, who you follow, what you comment, what you post. Public. Instagram, Twitter, they don't really have that way of collecting data. It really doesn't have that way of collecting data, right? Like, you can't just have a log of how people are engaging with their peers. It would really take a more qualitative analysis in order to do so. And in the scope of the work that I do, in the scope of the project that I was doing, I just wasn't able to do qualitative work. So within Facebook, we were able to download people's last 7 day behavior with their permission. They submitted. Facebook has a way you can unzip your last 7 days of Facebook material. Everything was, so we took that information, then we analyzed, or we're in the process of analyzing, the number of likes, the number of comments, the number of posts. I think those are the 3 main things that we're looking at, because we really have to break it down to something that you can measure. And so what we found in the pilot, and it's a very small pilot, we found that people without autism were posting about twice as much as those with autism. And not just posting, they were engaging less. They were liking at about 2.5 times less if you had autism versus the typically developing population. And I interpret that as likes in that passive engagement is really what makes social thrive online. Is you like people's content, you engage with them, you make comments, you share every now and then, but not too much. And so those were the three measures that we looked at. And so we found that at baseline there was they were posting about half as much as the typically developing population. And at least in the pilot, which I know is only 6 participants, we found that it increased to about the same rate. So they were posting about as much as those without autism. They were liking a little bit, they were liking twice as much, but still not up to their typically developed. So they were still that challenge. And I do want to emphasize that liking and commenting and posting doesn't make you more social. You could do all of those terribly in a way that destroys your relationships, and we're definitely mindful of that. So we're really exploring new ways to measure this, but this being such a new line of work, we're really, we haven't had the opportunity at nuanced of a level. And similarly with your questions about previous treatment and age, and like really that level of analysis is not what this project was for, and honestly not my line of academic expertise. I'm a clinical psychologist. I have an expertise in programming, or at least I have an interest in programming and understanding how to treat or provide social skills training. So I have these really big clinical ideas, but in terms of research, there's definitely more to get done or needs to get done before we can disseminate or before we can really call this something that's evidence-based.
Well, that's excellent. No, I'm starting a journey that's sort of similar to what you're doing, and I was kind of noticing a lot of those same things, so that's why I was asking. Thank you.
Of course. All great questions.
Yeah, those are some really thoughtful questions about your research. Thanks, Angie. I believe Paula, you're up, and then Kathy, you're on deck.
Hi, Anthony. Nice to have you here on the Spaces. My question was sort of the prior one too, but I didn't know if there was a social media that was more popular than the others. And like you said, Facebook had activity, but Twitter's kind of a shortened thing that's kind of just instantly put out there. So I didn't know if you found things like, more popular than other social media, and what you thought about that as far as the development of, doing things online. I had a late friend I just lost in December. He was very highly autistic. I mean, he was brilliant, but he lacked social skills. But you would never know that online because he was always involved in things, and he had a lot of interests that, I met him in actually a game about horses, and believe it or not, he lived in Czech Republic, and this was like 12 years ago, but I got into this group of people, which, we all made friends, and we actually got together to meet. So he came to America to see me, and then we went to see another girl in Michigan to ride horses. So it was crazy. And people like 12 years ago are like, you're meeting people on the internet? It's like, are you crazy? Because everybody thought that they were like, axe murderers or something. And, but we were this social little group with a forum, but we were friends for at least 1.5 to 2 years. So we felt really comfortable. So I just kind of wanted to ask you about that. And that was my 2 cents. But anyway.
Hi, Paula. Thanks for sharing your story, and I'm sorry for your recent loss.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I love this story because it really answers your first question about, what's the most popular. And I think the very simple answer is if you measure popularity by the number of users, Facebook's the most popular. But I think that there's like a culture popularity, and then there's the number of users popularity. And I think that, that's forever shifting. I mean, I thought Instagram was, but that was like 6 months ago, and now it's TikTok, or who knows what it is. But I think the reason why your story answers the first question is that it's not about what's the most popular. It's really about what's most appropriate for you. What I tell my clients is there's always a space on the internet for you. There's always a friend for you. There's always someone who has your same interests, has your same experience, has your same challenge, or maybe not the same, but different, or a way that is accepting of your experience. And so it could be a forum, it could be Instagram, it could be Twitter, it could be what Xbox Live, right? Like people have internet friends all over the place, and your friend was your friend needs to develop my intervention because he was clearly an expert in this before. It was a research need, because he used social effectively. He communicated in his preferred modality. He found some interest, which is horses, which it was probably his preferred interest. And he flew across the country. He developed a relationship, and then he flew across the country and was able to meet someone who ended up being his lifelong friend. So
yeah, we were friends for 12 years. And I sadly, like I said, it wasn't to COVID, but he was very young. He was only 36. So we lost him in December. But he was brilliant. I mean, he was just, he could read encyclopedias and retain it. He was that kind of mind. But socially, he wasn't, when you met him in person, he was good, but he had trouble sometimes speaking what was really on his mind. But when he typed, it was like a whole different thing. Did you find that people can type better than what they do with vocals?
Typing is just another mode of communication. It's like speaking a different language. And what's been so great about technology is it gives people to communicate things that they might not be able to verbally communicate. And we live in a society where verbal communication is a standard, but that's just a social standard. And so I don't know if it's different across the board, but just like other communication skills, it's something that can be learned. And for people who really depend on the internet or online communication to communicate with, it makes sense that really brilliant people can figure out how to use it effectively.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Of course. Take care.
And I love your dogs.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paula. Thanks for coming to our spaces again. I really appreciate it. I'm going to throw it over to Kathy. Ramona, you were on deck, and in the wings is Howie, and Howie will probably be the last person to ask questions. Go ahead, Kathy.
Okay, thanks. Hi. First, I'd like to make a comment about your account, and then I have a question about your work. About your account, I just want to say the photos that you've been posting of you, Tram, Maslow, and Pavolv are gorgeous. I don't know who took them for you. Just really beautiful. And the personalities of the dogs, as well as the two of you, come through. They're great. So, hi to Tram. I see she's a listener. And then the second thing I wanted to comment on is your work or question. I'm wondering if one of the things you teach or coach on or have a comment on is how you help people with autism deal with some of the negative comments that can come up. I noticed recently on the account of a Special Olympian, some person went off on him because his grammar wasn't to that person's liking. Now, in that case, other people who were followers just absolutely went on it. But are there skills that you're teaching around how to deal with those kinds of reactions?
This is a great question, and I think really, one of the more important. I don't know if you can hear Pavolv barking in the background, but he's messing Maslow up right now. And then also, I'll get to your second question, but first, thanks all for the photos. Our friend Annie, a lifelong family friend from San Diego, shot them for us. She's really talented in getting her profile started. So I'll post another picture and I'll link her account, or maybe on Instagram I'll do it because that's where she's really trying to take off. So, and y'all can support her there. And then, but your second question, I think, relates to one of the more critical questions about how do we keep people safe online? How do we help them navigate challenges and ultimately keep people safe. And by keeping them safe, I think it's quite literal, and it relates to like, cyberbullying and suicidality and sorry, trigger warning, like there are really serious consequences to online challenges. And so that was really critical for me to develop in my program, was a lesson and really a curriculum related to challenges, consequences, and coping is what we called the lesson. Sorry, now Maslow's messing up Pavolv. So that was the lesson: challenges, consequences, and coping. And I think that a lot of us learn in our in-person life that there are consequences to our in-person behavior. We can't just, if someone upsets us, we have to behave in a way, we have to cope in a way that doesn't leave us with consequences. And that's why we don't hit people, or at least most people don't hit people. And I think online, we don't really have that same teaching of what are the challenges, how can I anticipate them, what are the consequences of my behavior if I decide to cope ineffectively, and then how can I cope effectively in a way that allows me to overcome these. And so as it relates to like challenges, it's like understanding that people might try to like dox you or cyberbully you, and being aware is very mindful. So we very explicitly lay out like what's a troll, what's a dox, what's a catfish, like how do you identify what a troll is, and like this is what we're doing here, is we're identifying trolls by going into their account and do they have a profile picture, what's their username, and identifying safe accounts and people to interact with. What are some of the consequences? Well, I can get angry, I can lose my job, I can get canceled, but also in a very, I think in a way that not enough people understand, is that we're going to be judged by how we behave online, not just in person, and not just online, but also in person. To where like if I posted like, on Bunsen's account, like Bunsen, you're stinky and you're an ugly dog, like I don't like you, y'all will go to my account and be like, wow, this person's not nice. I don't ever want to be Pat Dad's friend. And my in-person network is going to say, wow, like, and this is something unique to social media, and this is why it's so critical, is that in person, if I said that to Bunsen in person, he would not, like, it wouldn't lead that discussion. Like maybe he would tell his friends and all that, but like they wouldn't see the interaction. And it could kind of disappear into the air. Online, everyone that is within your network can see your interactions. And so people that are your friend, maybe your coworkers, maybe your family members, are going to look at you, begin to say, hey, that person gets into arguments online. That person is a troll. That person posts inappropriate photos, right? Like, and so I try to teach my participants to be mindful that your social media account is kind of like your friendship resume. And then I teach them, we discuss coping strategies to help them overcome it, such as blocking trolls or deleting them or taking a break from your account. Maybe deleting the app, maybe like going on a walk, or reminding yourself that they're just people on the internet. I had a client tell me when I told him this, he was like, yeah, I always say, at the end of the day, you're just arguing with a phone. And I was like, bro, you're so right. Like, we get so trapped in this experience, and we have to learn how to cope with it effectively. And so we have a developing canon of knowledge of coping skills in person, like go on a walk and talk to a friend and do some breathing exercises, but we don't talk enough about how to cope online. And I think that as I move into like the next stage of my career, I think that's something that I want to do a little bit more work on, is online safety and like maybe more practical skills. Maybe not that social skills aren't practical, but I think that skills with a certain urgency to them. So great question.
Well, and just last thing, thank you so much. All of your accounts and Tram's accounts are wonderful, and they're so positive, and I think they contribute so effectively to the kind of community that I like to be part of. So thank you.
Thanks for being a part of our community.
Thanks, Kathy. Okay, we had a lot of those messages about Bunsen being stinky, a little bit worse than that, but they kind of disappeared, February of this year. So I'm not sure what happened in like January, February. But anyways, on to Ramona. You're up next. Go ahead, and
Hey
then
there.
Howie. Hi, go ahead.
Hey, Anthony and Tram, thank you so much for sharing yourselves and your dogs with us. It's awesome. Wanted to let you know that I kiss my girl goodnight every single night. Wish her sweet dreams. So, so please wish Pavlov and Maslow sweet dreams from us tonight when you kiss them goodnight.
Oh, I will. Thank you.
You're welcome. And thank you so much. And I want to follow up, and I don't want to take too much time because I know we're running out. And I think you touched on what I wanted to ask you about. I'm a manager at a research and development laboratory. So I deal with some folks who are on a way somewhere on the spectrum in some ways, whose social skills need a lot of help. And I'm wondering if you're thinking that you're online. I'm wondering for some people, if they get more comfortable online, that will translate to more comfort in person. Are you thinking about that transfer back and forth of skill sets?
I hope so. That's a hope. However, I'm mindful of the mechanism of change, and I'm working on a very particular social skill, and I think that any consequence of that would be really hard to take responsibility for. But I think on a very practical level, individual level, and me being a clinical or future clinical psychologist, like I deeply care about that. I do think that there is that personal effect. And something that we found in our randomized controlled trial was that people who did the intervention, the full 9-week program, felt more confident online. They used these skills, and we don't know if it translates to anything, but online confidence gives you a lot of empowerment. And I think that that's something where I've seen in my own experience to where being able to interact with so many people, being able to, in a way, practice my social skills and be able to have a lot of positive social interactions online, it makes me an overall more confident and social person. And I would say that there's some consequence to that being in person, but I can't take responsibility for that.
Yeah, I'm just hoping it does. I think it will. Your work is amazing, and I really am thinking about, okay, if someone can gain some confidence, as you said, online, potentially that confidence could also translate into their in-person relationships. So I'll be watching. I'm still watching. I'll be out here and seeing how you go and where you develop. And it's exciting to watch. And congratulations on your journey.
Oh, thanks for the love and support.
All right, I'm going to throw it over to Howie. Howie, you got the last question, and then Anthony, do you have time to take one more question from Howie? I know I said an hour.
Of course. My job is to talk and listen and talk to people, so I never turn off.
Okay. Wow. I feel like so much pressure now with the last question. Thank you guys for taking me. I apologize for joining the party late, but big fans of both of you, Pavolv, Maslow, and Bunsen and Beaker, who I always know Beaker. You were always there, and such. My question is. First off, I also have pets too. I have 3 cats. One of them is kind of just running around. So if you hear me kind of all of a sudden go, ow, that's because my cats have zoomies. So any of you that are cat owners understand the joy of what I am fearing right now, and such. And actually, they became, since I'm a middle school teacher during this year, as I taught from home, one of them, Porthos, my black cat, became very popular, and the kids actually demanded that he take over and teach the class instead of me when he would crash. So I can understand what Dad Guy sometimes goes through with both Bunsen and Beaker and such. My question to you, in regards to your research, Anthony, is have you looked into the concept? Because I, as a middle school teacher, I deal with students, autism, not autism, who have said they have social media accounts, but and I've read also this in other research that kind of almost have split personalities. I don't know if bipolar is the right word or anything like that, with each of their accounts. So they kind of have separate almost identities, regards to what they do on each account, and such. And I wonder if you've experienced a lot of that in regards with your research or any interventions in that regards.
That's a great question. And I also have a secret identity that I play online, and his name is Pavolv. I think that that's okay. Because what it really is self-expression, a hobby, and whatever it is. I mean, it could be, I'm lucky enough to have a subject for my social media kind of personality. I can use the dogs as a way to express whatever kind of emotion, feeling, art that I want to. And I think that kids, and this is a very kind of like, at least in the progression that I went through, I had like a way more different personality than when I was a teenager online than I was in person. But that online identity really allowed me to gain in-person confidence. And I think that's something we've been saying across the board. And so I think that the interesting part about social media, though, in a way that it's unique to our generation, and it might feel like a new thing, is that it's visual, it's accessible. So you can say, I have this interest or separate identity, and
Oh, I think we lost Anthony there.
Oh, that's not
He'll
good.
come back. I can hear you, Howie.
I can hear you. Don't worry, it was not one of my cats.
Oh, he's gone. He's gone. He'll come back in a sec. Oh, there, he's a listener now. I'm gonna get him back up here.
Good.
Boom, 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 boom. So yeah, Anthony, Anthony's just coming back up to speak here.
Hello. I forget where I was at. But ultimately, it's like culture specific, and social media makes it more visible, more accessible, us to kind of get an insight into what their personality, what their interest, what their art is like. But is it something that needs to be intervened on or taught or challenged? Only if it becomes problematic, only if it gets in the way of them living a healthy life, only if it impacts the way that they're behaving either online or in person. And I think just generally, like it's just a unique way of expressing yourself online to where other people can look at it. And previously, it was you did on the evenings or on the weekends, and no one got the opportunity to have that insight into your life.
Yeah, understand. Anyway, well, thank you. Give a hug and a kiss to Pav and Mazov for me. I would do my cats, but cats don't like that, so I just have to give them scritches and such. So they
All right.
funny.
Give your cat some scratchies. Good night for me.
Will do.
One of the just a funny aside, just that you brought that up, Howie. Bunsen and Beaker are it's funny, they're like part of my personality. Bunsen is like the reserved science guy, and then Beaker's like the person I would like to be all the time, like the person that's like so outgoing. So it's kind of fun having an account where I can have those two split personalities. Where they do have, I don't know if you guys noticed that they do have separate voices when they tweet as themselves. It's kind of fun that way.
Oh, for sure. Sure.
Sorry, I didn't
No.
take that question, Anthony.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's art. Like you're expressing yourself through pictures, through text, and RIP to the this is art Twitter account. But like it really acknowledged how like this is a form of self-expression, and there's a part of in every form of art.
Mm-hmm. It's just a different type of art. Yeah, you bet. We're at the end of the 1 hour. Well, it's a little bit more than that. So thank you, Anthony, for staying this whole hour. Usually after we have a guest, I get the guest to plug anything that they would like people to know about. Do you have a website that people can go to? I think you have merch, eh?
We put a pause on the merch while we're in Seattle, since that's back in Los Angeles.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, my plug, follow our on Twitter, Instagram. I think we have like a link in our bio on Twitter that you can go follow everyone on. But like my general plug is like take care of yourself. Like your well-being is a part of your your happiness is a part of your health. Talk to someone. Find a therapist. Therapy just isn't for people with challenges or people with any type of pathology. And I know that we're starting to destigmatize that a little bit. So here's my like 2 cents into that is like just go talk to someone. I'm going to be a therapist one day, and I'm just going to hop on a 1 hour call with y'all and talk to you and hopefully empathize and understand you and hopefully give you some coping strategies to have more effective relationships. But therapists are people like me and people like Tram. And so I know it's kind of scary that system, especially if you're in the United States and it's really complicated to navigate healthcare. But take care of yourself, do your research, and just find someone that you vibe with, because you're really worth that time.
Anthony, this has been a fantastic space. I don't know if you saw how many people are listening. We've been averaging like between 40 and 60 people. So the message, your message has resonated with people. So just from the bottom of my heart, thank you for agreeing to talk to everybody today in Spaces.